Gotta take action. Nothing worse than being an entity or an organization that doesn't take action. Gotta take a risk.
All right, so we're going to meet with my man, Travis Mack, Super Travis Mack, live podcast on the spot in his office, downtown Broward. You can already see we're here in Las Olas Financial Centers. He's on the 17th floor, so let's check out his spot. Hope you figure out how to find an elevator. All right, sir. Finally, we made it.
Hey, glad to be here. Glad to be here. Anything for you, my friend. Anything for you.
It's been a couple months, and you said you didn't want to come on because of some things that you're working on.
Sure, yeah.
So tell us about that. Well, before we get started,
all right.
I know you, and I'm sure a lot of people do know your face, but the people that don't know you, tell them who are, and also the people listening for the podcast who can't physically see us right now. Tell them who you are.
Sure. I'm Travis Mack. I'm the chairman and CEO for the Salex Corporation. We're an aerospace and defense contractor, primarily supporting test range management and operations. We do a little bit of logistics and also information technology support for primarily Department of Defense customers. We do roughly about $100 million annually in revenue with about 800 employees nationwide. So pretty robust organization, and trying to grow every single day in the Govcon space, which is why I'm so impressed with what you guys do, because it is sometimes a challenging vertical to ascend.
Thank you for that. Now, where are we at right now? You were describing this office. This office is...
Yeah, this is Fort Lauderdale office. This office is, downtown Fort Lauderdale. Usually we have our program management meetings here. We bring all of our program managers from across the nation and meet here. It's easier on me, so I don't have to go to 8, 10 different spots across the United States. So this is like a central hub for us, and it works out. Not to mention everybody likes to come to Fort Lauderdale, and everybody likes the sun.
When I was driving here, I was telling Brandon, I said, wow, no wonder he likes to have meat at Las Olas. It's right down there.
It's right around. There's every single restaurant you could possibly imagine down there. So it makes for a good central meeting location.
No, that's fantastic. That's fantastic. Now we could get into the crux of why it took 2-3 months.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
So tell us, what were you working on that you were saving before you decided to give us your interview and to bless us with your presence? What were you saving for us?
Well, listen, when you called me up several months ago, I said, absolutely, I'll do it for you. Love what you're doing for the small business community. It's important what you're doing with the small business community and trying to educate and gain access and give them some insight into the process, because this is a pretty unique process. Right? And it takes a moment. This doesn't happen overnight. At that time, we were in the final stages of closing our largest acquisition. And we acquired another federal contractor by the name of NetSimco. It was, one of our largest acquisitions to date. And so I just wanted to make sure that was done before you get me on camera asking me all these questions.
Right.
And I accidentally spilled the beans, right? Breaking all NDAs and everything else. But we're thrilled to have gotten that acquisition done, and it has made us a better company. We are thrilled to have NetSimco as a part of our organization and helping us grow, and really be a robust organization within the information technology vertical as we try to turn the ship of our aerospace and defense company.
It's interesting that since the last 3 months that I met you and that we talked about this meeting, I've learned so much about you because we've met on multiple occasions, dinners and your events, and then we met at NFT week. And it's funny, he's right. I don't actually need any script or anything like that. I know the names of the companies, I know the organizations. So now this acquisition, which happens to be kind of in my backyard where we're serving and the government up in Rhode Island, is that part of Salex? Or is that part of Valeo?
No, that's part of Salex.
Okay.
Yeah, Salex and Valeo are two separate organizations. Salex deals in the federal vertical, right? Aerospace and defense.
Sure.
Valeo, separately run organization, deals in the commercial information technology space. Okay. So Salex supports, Department of Defense clients, at the federal level. Valeo supports small and medium-sized businesses, cybersecurity, cloud solutions, network administration in that vertical. So one is at federal, and then the other is in the commercial space.
Now I know that Valeo.
Yeah, they'd be mad at you if you said Valero, right? Like the gas company.
The gas company, right? Like, that's why your brain,
I know.
automatically sinks to this thing.
We have to break you guys.
I know.
It's Valeo.
I messed up an HBCU name one time and somebody was pretty upset. So it's not the first time. But nevertheless, Valeo,
yes.
Right? Don't you also have a roll-up strategy with Valeo as well?
Don't I have
roll-up strategy in terms of acquisitions?
We do. Right now we've been fortunate enough to be able to deal with one of the largest minority investment banking firms in the nation, Seawood Williams and Shank, and they're our backer as we engage on an MSP, managed service provider, IT roll-up strategy across the nation, and so. We're a little bit busy on both fronts. We're excited about that roll-up strategy. We're moving forward with enhancing our capabilities in the cybersecurity space, cloud solution space. Right. As you know, that's a pretty hot topic these days.
That's a hot topic.
Not only at the federal level, but also in the commercial sector as well. And so, coupled with everything that's going on in the Govcon space, we're also doing the commercial IT MSP roll-up as well.
Let's go back to your early days.
Oh, goodness. That was a long time ago.
Like that picture on the wall over here with the young Travis.
Oh, man, that was such a long time ago. Look at that. I don't even recognize that dude.
Before all the awards and all the accolades and all the stuff on the walls and the box that just came.
Oh, yeah.
Let's go back to the early days because what I found is for my audience, it's hard to relate sometimes to people that have 800 employees.
Sure.
Right? They go, I can't. And I don't know if you ever saw yourself having 800 employees.
Never, ever.
So, I think to let people know that you're real and this is possible and that, right, that it's not so far-fetched of an idea concept, kind of share in on how, because again, that picture just before we started, we said that you had 2 employees at that time.
I had 2 employees at the time, correct. Yeah.
Right? And so that's remarkable, and that's part of what I want to share with folks. Is, how does someone go from 2 employees to 800 employees and doing multi-million-dollar acquisition?
Yeah. I think the first thing that I'm going to say is there's no defined path. Right. I think every individual every executive has to kind of define that as they go along. Right. And I think one of my abilities over the years has been change has never scared me. It has never scared me. And a lot of folks get scared by change. And I have a really easy saying, what you start out as isn't necessarily what you're going to finish as, right? And so Salex has morphed, a couple of different times into a couple of different organizations. We started out as an IT consulting firm during the dot-com dot-com implosion. Now, how brilliant is that? Who starts an IT company in 1998, 1999, right?
I remember dot-com.
Right? Who does that, right? The brilliance of it, right? So, we started out like that, and all of a sudden the business environment kicks you in the teeth, and you got to be something different. And so it's about recognizing when you have to make those pivots, and being able to make those pivots, right? And going in a different direction when the business environment dictates that you have to do something different. There's nothing worse than saying, I'm going to make this work, I'm going to make this work, I'm going to make this work, when the entire business world is saying, nah, we're not interested in that. That's not what we want to do. That's not the path we want to go down. And you, as an executive, as a leader of your organization, you got to realize that, and you got to see that, and then you have to pivot to be able to accommodate what your customer base is looking for. So when the dot-com world imploded, I'm sitting here with an IT consulting company and being like, okay, what am I going to do now?
Right.
So, got a call from, a friend of mine that had done some IT consulting work for us. And he, at the time it was TRW. And he said, hey, you know what, there's an opportunity. TRW, I know you've been doing some IT consulting in the quality assurance world. You want to come down here and you want to talk to TRW. Now, there's one or two things that I could have said right then, right? I could have said, hey, no, I'm going to focus on this IT stuff. I believe I can weather the storm. Right. I'm not going to worry about that. Right. I took a different path. I said, you know what? I need to go and hold the conversation. Now, I was dead broke. I didn't have the money to get down there. That was a 52-mile drive. I didn't have the gas money to get down there.
Wow.
But, figured it out. Got down there, pitched the small business group at TRW about our capabilities. And, 2 weeks later, I got a time and material contract for 2 people to do quality assurance stuff. Now, true enough, they were trying to meet their socioeconomic goals, right? But that was kind of how I got my start in the defense world. Started with one person, doing one task, and it went from there. And that was the pivot. And that was an inflection point. So,
were there other times as you were going from 2 people to 10 to 20 where you had challenges with finances?
Always. After about 3 or 4 years in business, and we were doing $250,000, $300,000 a year. Sure. I couldn't get banks to look at me. I had contract that says, we're gonna be for a year. You're gonna get this amount of money, and right. Literally signed. By billion-dollar corporations. Now we were subcontracting, sure. Right? But I couldn't get banks to look at me. So instead of me, continuing to go down that path, I looked at alternative financing mechanisms. Okay. Things like the EDC-VC, the Economic Development Collaborative, small community banks. Because the big banks aren't going to touch you.
Absolutely.
They're, it's not even a conversation. So honestly, make the introduction, shake the hand, move on, because they're just not, right? They don't want to lend you money until you don't need it, right? That's when they want to lend you money, right? You heard that one before, right?
Listen, we're working on a solution for that.
Right, exactly. So alternative financing organizations, economic development collaboratives, those kind of second tier lenders are the ones, when you don't have a very long track record, are the ones that you need to be talking to. And they're prevalent. You just got to find them. You got to do a little bit more work, right? But that's where I got my first $250,000 loan from. It wasn't with any of the big banks. I got it from an alternative lending mechanism in Camarillo, and they're the ones that gave me, my first big check to go out for working capital and to support my workforce.
Do you still bank with them?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It reminds me of Shaq with general insurance, and he says, "Hey, I promote the general because when I didn't have any other insurance, they gave me insurance."
Absolutely, and so true enough, we may have some things that have outgrown them, but I still have a line with them. We still do some initiatives together. We still have some contractual relationships, and that's important for me to maintain, because when nobody else was there, right, they figured out a way. And they actually used, I showed them, the 12 no's, the 12 rejections, right? And that's always painful to go through, because everybody thinks that they're wonderful. I thought I was wonderful.
12 rejections.
But to be rejected 12 times, that begins to eat on that psyche. Has an impact on the ego.
It does.
Right? And so, but I showed them those, the 12 rejections, and that was part of their, when they went to committee, that was part of their consideration. This individual, he's went to the banks, he's given the same financials that we're looking at. Honestly, from a financial perspective, they're decent. Right? Sure enough, there's some metrics that, could be worked there. But that's their mission, is to fund organizations that would normally be rejected by the big banks. And so you got to find those.
And that's something actually really good to know, because I've heard that on multiple occasions where you can take your rejection letters to certain institutions.
Yes.
They'll use that
Yes.
as to actually support and,
Yes.
and agree to help fund you because you were rejected. So if I'm not mistaken, and obviously we're not small business lenders, but aren't there programs that specifically say if you are rejected that they'll give you a loan?
Oh, absolutely. Well, there's one that'll give you consideration.
Right.
Now, they're not guaranteed to give you a loan, but they will give, absolutely. They will give you consideration, and that actually enhances your case when you're in loan committee, right? When they're, listen, all banks, all lending institutions go to a loan committee, where we got a bunch of folks that are sitting around making a decision on whether or not, they want to lend you money or not.
Right.
So, those actually, and depending upon what their mission or what their model is, what their lending requirements are, those letters come in handy. Those rejection letters come in handy when you're trying to convince someone to give you. That's backed up by the proper information.
So save your rejection letters.
Keep those rejection letters. I know they hurt, but keep them.
Right, not just for souvenirs to remind you of the pain. Okay, keep not just remind you of the pain, like whichever come, to actually leverage them for credibility later on.
Exactly.
Even when you apply for 8A, and you say, "Hey, why am I socially economically disadvantaged?"
Yeah.
Here's all my.
Look at these 12 letters, right? Look who said no to me.
Right. Not bankable.
Not bankable. Exactly. That hurts. That term hurts.
No, I was
not
rejected,
bankable.
When I did some real estate deals, I was rejected 3 times, and I thought that was pretty bad.
Yeah.
12.
Oh, listen.
That's got to be.
And it was a year and a half straight.
A year and a half.
A year and a half straight.
So you kept at it for a year and a half.
You have to, because I was mad at that point. I was upset. I was like, you know what? Listen, I know I got a viable opportunity here. I got contracts that are signed by large prime contractors. My work is guaranteed for a year. I got to keep at this. Now, it was a struggle. Don't get me wrong. And there were moments that days that I did not want to get up out of bed, right? But somehow you got to convince yourself to keep going.
No, that's great, because I know what that's like to not want to get out of bed.
Oh man.
Every email is negative.
Yes.
Phone calls are painful.
Yeah. I take 48-hour timeouts, by the way.
Do you? Okay.
I take 48-hour timeouts, and 48-hour timeouts are basically when you have been beaten up so bad. And believe me, if you're an entrepreneur, there are times that when you ask yourself, why am I doing this? Why do I keep doing this? Right? You can go out, you can get a job, right? Make it easy on yourself, a good 9 to 5, right? Life is easy, life is good. But you wouldn't be satisfied if you went out and did that, right? So, at the end of the day, I take 48-hour timeouts to whereas I try to get away from looking at all the negative stuff, and I try to do something that supports my psyche a little bit, right? That gives me something. And I've figured out that, after about 48 hours, I stop feeling sorry for myself, because it's okay to feel sorry for yourself. It really is. It really is. But after about 48 hours, you got to get up. You got to get back on the horse. The only thing that the really negative thing would be if you just stopped and if you just quit. So give yourself a few timeouts. I call them timeouts. And 48 hours is about my number, right? Sometimes, depending on how bad I was beat up, it might extend to 72.
Okay.
But yeah, so I give myself time out, and then I got to get back on the horse, right? And then I got to go and grind it out some more.
How do you know the right decisions to make?
Shoot, if I knew that, I had a crystal ball.
Right? I
knew that. I have a crystal ball.
I know, but obviously getting to where you're at, you make more right decisions than wrong decisions. So
I try to use, I try to make database decisions as much as I can, right?
Database decisions.
Yeah, decisions that are based on data, right? Which I think is important. Another thing that I think is important is that I'm not trying to get to the 100% solution. As an executive, as a decision maker, you're not trying to get to 100%.
Okay.
You're trying to get reasonable assurances that you're going in the right direction, right? That might be 60%, that might be 70%. But if you sit there and you wait to 100%, that opportunity or whatever has passed you by, or you've missed that particular moment to make that decision that will put you in a better place, right? And then at the end of the day, make the decision. And if it's wrong, change it. But make the decision. And I think that's one thing I can, like, be a decisive decision maker, and be okay with you being wrong. Be okay with it, right? Because you are going to be wrong. You're not going to be infallible and not be right all the time. And depend, if you're fortunate enough to have a team, depend on your team. Get inputs from your team. Hey, which way you guys think we ought to go? What do you think we ought to do? Give me your thoughts. Give me your input. Yeah, I'm gonna make the decision, but boy, I want to hear from you. Diversity of thought, right? I want to hear from you. Then make a decision, right? Make a decision, and if it's wrong and you see that it's wrong, change it. And then tell everybody, you know what, I blew it. Hey, my bad. I blew it. But we changed it. We recognized that it was wrong. We recognized that we didn't have enough information. We recognized that the business model had moved, had shifted a little bit, right? All these things can happen. And then it's up to you as a leader to change it. Be okay with being wrong. I think everybody's so enamored with being right all the time. Doesn't bother me in the least if I'm wrong. Doesn't bother me in the least. In fact, I have a common saying, listen, if I'm the smartest guy in the room, we're all in trouble. We're all in trouble, right? And so I always try to build a team that can give me diversity of thought, that can help in that decision-making process. And then when you do make the right decisions, give all of the credit to them. Give it all to them, because they were the ones that helped you make that decision. So, there's two ways to lead. You got to lead from the front, you got to lead from the back. Your job as a CEO or the executive or the leader is to figure out where you need to be leading at. Sometimes I need to be in the front, right? I need to be taking the spears so I can protect everybody behind me. Sometimes I need to be in the back with the pom-poms, cheering and motivating, right? And so it just depends on where you think you're needed in that leadership flow.
I think a lot of times, and I can speak for myself, but I have engaged with hundreds of small business, thousands at this point. But a lot of times, some of the challenges that I find is you can't necessarily always afford the best people.
Sure.
Right? So you're saying, hey, I want these great people that are leaders, that have all this experience, that they're going to take the bull by the horns and run with it, but you can't always afford those persons. And saying that, right? Sometimes you might. You're not the smartest person in the room, but they're out of your team. There's some people that are smarter than others, and some people that are. So how have you managed that?
Well, I think I touched on, the 100% solution, right? You're not going to be able to afford, these really expensive people right off the bat. Initially, when you're trying to get people to help you, I think that you have to be okay with addressing your biggest needs first and then getting to the middle of the road. What do I mean by that? I mean, initially, when you're a small business starting out, you're not going to have a staff.
Correct.
You're not. But boy, you're going to have a whole bunch of independent contractors, 1099s, people that you can go to that will charge you for their services, right? In order to get you to the answers or the information that you need, right? So initially, the point is you just don't have the revenue base, and you just don't have the track record to go out there and hire 4 or 5, 6 people. Right. So you got to start building a team of independent contractors, 1099 personnel. That's what I started out as. I didn't start off with a payroll. I started off with 4 people doing 1099. They were all subcontractors, right? Because I didn't have the bandwidth to be able to deal with all the payroll expenses and things of that nature. Right. Nor did I have the infrastructure set up to be able to deal with all that. So I started off doing a whole bunch of 1099s. Okay. And that's kind of how I got my start with regards to that. So that's what I would recommend. Try to build that team and try to build, the 1099, independent contractors that you can go out and you can establish relationships with in order to help you in that vertical.
So we were discussing, again, like you said, not having the 100% solution and hiring contractors initially in the beginning. And I'm sure that's very helpful and beneficial to a lot of people. One of the things that we regularly talk about is the alphabet soup. But when you were working as a subcontractor for TRW, was it?
Correct.
Okay. Were you MBE or DBE or any of those?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I think, initially as a federal contractor, getting those marketing, I call them marketing certs, right?
Okay.
DBE, MBE, SDVOB, you name it. There's some. I think it's important for you to go through the process of getting those. And the reason being is because it gives you a marketing tool. Right? That's what it is.
Marketing tool.
It gives you a marketing tool, right? That's what it is. It's a marketing tool. And it gives you a reason for the large primes to interact with you, right? Because they have goals that they're trying to fill, right? So if you don't have any benefit, right, why am I discussing it with you? Unless you have some whiz-bang, technology, which is probably not going to be the case in most cases. So I think it's important. I mean, is it times? Yes. Is it painful? Yes. There's a reason, right? It's used as an elimination barrier, right? If you're not willing to put in the time to do the registration, right? You don't want certification, right? So I think it's very, very important because it gives you a tool to market to the large primes. And to some of the prime agencies as well.
Yeah, they tend to. First thing they say to small businesses, do you have any certs?
Oh yeah,
that's the first thing that comes to their brain.
Well, I think where most people mess up at though is you got to understand which level cert that you're getting, right? There are state level certs, right? MBE is a state level cert,
DBE.
right? DBE is a state level cert, right? And then you got to understand the federal certs, right? And then you got to understand who you're marketing to. So if you're marketing me MBE and DBE, but yet you're talking to me at a federal event, I'm like, okay, that's great. That is wonderful.
That is very important what he just said. You must be able to distinguish between your federal certs, your state certs, and your local certs because here we'll have CBE, CSBE.
Yes, absolutely.
Well. So,
and you'll have company certs as well. The real large primes will have certs that are only specific to their company.
Can you give us an example?
Power companies, electric companies. Electric company have certain supplier certs that are only specific to their company or the energy vertical.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
So you got to understand what those certs are, and you got to understand what level that you're playing at, right? So you need to identify the federal certs, right, that are beneficial to you. Mm-hmm. You need to identify the state certs that are beneficial to you. And then you need to identify local and company certs that might be beneficial to you for the services or products that you provide.
If no, and again, I appreciate all of that. That's very helpful because sometimes when I'm looking at people's capability statements, they have all this stuff across the board. Yeah. I don't think they understand who they're marketing to. I think that's a challenge with small businesses. Because people say government contracting and they just put it all in one.
They put it all together.
Yes.
Listen, I will tell you. Okay, government, right? There is a difference between what the federal government does and what state government does. There's also a difference between what state government does and what city and county government does, right? So you got to be really precise on who your target market is. And that's the biggest challenge, I think. The biggest challenge is that it's such a big space. And there's so many roadblocks to getting into the space. Right. And if you start out, getting all of these certs, but yet you're marketing at the federal level, you're just going to spin your wheels. And you're going to continue to ask yourself, why did I go to that event? Why did I do that? Right. But you got to understand that, and you got to understand where your target market's going to be, and then you got to focus on that. Stop shooting at the world. Can't do it. 80% of your business is from 20% of your customers. I don't care what anyone else says. You cannot go from the East Coast over to the West Coast and think that somebody's going to know you and think that they're going to give you business. They're not.
I thought you could just shotgun them.
No, people do business with people that they know and that they like, and they got to know you. So If you're thinking not to show up at that next event, talk yourself out of that. You need to show up. You need to show up, right? Because most of my contracts and most of the relationships that I've gained over the years have been because I showed up at an event that I truly did not want to go to. I was like, damn, I gotta go to this event? Right?
Yeah.
And then I willed myself to go to that event. And then when I got to that event, I had initiatives. I had a list.
Yeah.
I want to talk to this person, this person, this person, this person. And even if it was just a 15-second introduction, I wanted to give them something. Card, shake a hand, whatever the case may be. But you got to be in the room. You're not in the room. And it also helps you figure out which levels you want to play at, right? You'll start to, after a while, you'll start to see what's a federal event, what's a state event, what's a local county event, and it'll help you start to delineate between the levels.
I think a lot of times we become easily discouraged because things don't happen fast enough. We're not seeing results.
Yep.
We've gone to all the events.
Yep.
We give out capability statements.
Yep.
No one calls me back.
Yep.
I'm supposed to throw in a towel, right?
Well, listen, most do.
Right.
Most
Right.
do. But I imagine if you're watching this podcast, you're trying not to do what most people do, right?
Absolutely.
Right. That's right. You're trying to figure out what the nuggets are,
Right.
and whatever your horizon is, right? You think that it's gonna take you a year and a half to generate business. You think it's gonna take you 2 years to generate business. Take that number and double it. Take that number and double it. It never happens as fast as you think it's going to happen. And be ready to go through it. Be ready to go through the trials and the self-doubt. Listen, everybody's got self-doubt.
Oh, big time.
Everybody's got self-doubt. I mean, it's the matter of trying to talk yourself out of doubting what your actions are. I mean, and that's hard because it's a struggle. It really is. And, you know, that's the self-doubt, and my 48-hour rule is where I give myself time to pity myself, doubt myself. You know, what if you can't? You know, oh, it's going to take you, you're going to have to work this much harder. You got to do this, you got to do that. 48 hours, I got to say to myself, okay, that's enough of that. Now we got to figure out how we accomplish the next mission.
Something that we skipped over was you're a veteran.
I am.
So you served
United States Navy.
Navy.
Go Navy.
All right.
Go Navy.
There you go. All right. And then after the Navy, what happened next?
Oh, so after the Navy, which by the way was probably one of my best decisions that I ever made in my entire life was going to the military. You know, you talk about taking an undisciplined individual and turning them into a disciplined individual, which is what the military did for me.
You were undisciplined.
Oh my God. Oh, I got stories. I'm not telling anybody, but I got stories.
Okay, all right.
Okay. And then when I got out of the military, wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do. I was able to finish up my degree while I was in, started doing some additional training when I got out, but I went to work in industry. And that's a big transition in and of itself, you know, going from a structured environment like the military and then going to the commercial industry. So I went to a consulting company called Modus at the time, Modus Consulting. And I went around, you know, the US and international building up engineering departments. And that's what I did for 2-3 years. And then I jumped back into the .com craze because I love technology, and I actually did a little software development, you know, scripting. I can't even call it software development.
Right.
I'm gonna call it scripting.
Okay.
Okay. Right. HTML stuff,
Right,
scripting.
sure.
Right. And then I got recruited to go to homestore.com at the time, which was now realtor.com. To build their engineering department. And so I built their engineering department from about 5 people up to about 130 when I left. And when I left there, I thought I had a really good understanding of how do you build businesses, because I'd done it for the last 6 years. So I felt really good about it. And then when I made the decision to leave there, I was telling myself, wow, do I really want to jump back into the corporate world? I think I can do something, right? And then that's how I came up with Salex. And I will tell you, actually, I had started a business while I was in the military. When I was transitioning out, it was, boy, it's the greatest idea ever. You're gonna love this idea. This is great. I'm telling you. All right. It was called Mack's Mobile Shuttle Service.
Mobile what?
Mobile service.
Okay.
Mack's Mobile.
Yeah, I like it.
Shuttle service.
Oh, shuttle. Okay.
Shuttle service. All right.
Okay.
Here's the idea. I was gonna take military members to and from their medical and dental appointments.
Okay.
Right. Take them to and from their medical dental. It was a great idea. It wasn't being done. You know, they'd have to rent their own cars, or they'd have to, you know, hire somebody to drive them down there, right? So there was nobody doing it. And great idea. So I spent about $20,000 of my money that I'd saved while I was in the military, right, to vet this idea and go through the process. The issue was I didn't understand federal acquisition regulation, how the government does business.
Right.
So, best idea ever, failed miserably because I didn't know FAR. I didn't know how the government bought stuff, right?
So you're like, I'm just going to buy the equipment.
I'm just going to buy the equipment, go out and get these vans.
Right.
I'm going to be ready.
Right.
That's not how it works. So anyway, failed miserably, lost about $25,000 when the whole thing was said and done. But what it did, it was an expensive education because it made me understand the FAR, the Federal Acquisition, which in turn helped me with Salex. Right? Because you got to understand the FAR as, you know, as a federal contractor. So anyway, that's a little nugget that not too many people know.
No, I like that.
I've had several of them fail. You only got to get one right. Right?
Yeah.
You only got to get one right.
No, I know. Yeah, hey,
I've had
a lot. That's what the successful people say all the time.
I've failed three different businesses that I've failed at miserably. I mean, ball of flames, smoke everywhere. I think that's one of my things. You know, if you're gonna fail, go big.
Go big. That's
what
somebody says that. They say that.
Go big.
If
you're gonna go out hard. I mean, it's gotta be a ball of fire. I mean, and it's gotta hurt so bad. And the reason why I say that is because you know what? You're not going to make that mistake ever again.
Right,
you're going to remember how painful that was. And then you're going to do everything in your next venture. You're going to do everything in your power to make sure that you mitigate that particular risk.
You know, it's interesting. I think people are trying to mitigate the risk now. They're so concerned about mitigating the ball of flame that they have paralysis analysis. They don't take action because they're trying to control 100% of all the activities that along the way.
Got to take action. Nothing worse than being an entity or an organization that doesn't take action. Got to take action. Got to take risk, right? You have to take risk. Now, have to take, measured risk, right? Mitigated risk, but you have to take those risks. That's all a part of process. That's all a part of gain.
Have you ever taken any management classes?
Sure.
Oh, you have?
Oh, yeah. I've been to, what does Wall say? I've been to Clark, Atlanta. The SBA sent me to Dartmouth.
Dartmouth. A lot of my people talk about Dartmouth.
Yeah, I've been to that one. Been to a couple other HBCUs and things of that nature. But yeah, so... and those are all executive management type courses.
Right.
Been to USC, Marshall School of Business, did some executive training courses. Been at UCLA, Anderson School of Business at UCLA. So, over the years, I've probably done 4 or 5 different executive management, project management type courses in addition to my degree. I believe that you got to be educated, right? And you got to experience management in different facets. So I've been to all of them. A lot of them were sponsored by the SBA or, certificate programs that the SBA offered. True enough, you might have had to pay a little bit to go to them, but it was worth it. Not to mention that you meet a lot of really good people that you can kind of get ideas from, and that can be sounding boards to you, because sometimes as a CEO, as a leader or executive, it's a little lonely.
Yeah, no. So kind of off camera, we're talking about using your finance vernacular, and I was using engineering words and terms and stuff. And you mentioned your kids. I don't think you've told or shared it with the people, your family. Kids.
Sure. Yeah, I got 6 kids. My oldest is 33 now, 33. And then it goes all the way down to my youngest, which is 16. They initially, in fact, I named Salex after my kids, after my first 2 kids.
Okay.
Sage, S-A, Alexia, A-L-E-X, Salex. And that's how I come up with Salex. Okay. And then I had to create a couple of other entities in order,
to make sure,
absolutely, make sure the rest of my kids don't beat me up for not naming something after them. So I got J3M Enterprises, and a whole bunch of other stuff that makes sure that I encapsulate their names. That they always say, when you name your organization, name it after something that's near and dear to your heart. And so that's kind of what I did. So.
No, I like that. Yeah, our company's EEE Publishing, and so my brother's all names begin with the E.
Oh, okay.
Emmanuel, Eric, and Earl.
There you go. See,
yeah, that makes sense.
Near and dear to your heart.
Getting back to what we're discussing in terms of the management and learning, I just want to, again, I want people out here to leave with some practical things that they can actually take in actionable steps. So you mentioned the SBA programs, executive management trainings. What other trainings that you've had along the way that's helped you in terms of your journey?
Sure.
Maybe they're books or quotes, things that you offer.
Yeah, listen, I'm a true believer in being in the room. I'm a true believer in, when you got the opportunity to go and get some training in some areas, you got to go do it. Although it may not be the right timing, you have to go do it. And so I'm an advocate of in my own backyard when you see these events, marketing events, training things, go do them. There's value to it. I know you don't want to, but there's value to them. And those are the moments that you have to will yourself to go. Right? Have an agenda. Be focused. Don't have a shotgun approach. Do what's in your backyard. Market what's in your backyard, because those customers got to see you, right? They got to, you have to show up. They have to know you as the individual. And that was my secret. I don't think I did anything that was unique from anybody else. The one thing that I did do was show up. Right? They knew me. They knew what they were going to get when they saw me every single time. And I made it a focus. I made it a point to be in the room. And that has truly been one of, my pillars that I've lived by is show up. You got to show up. And you know what? You say you're going to do something, you got to do it. You got to do it. You got to follow through. The tiniest follow through steps is really important. Follow through, follow up. It's a must. It's an absolute must. And so if you don't do it, then they doubt your sincerity to provide the proper services and the proper products.
Something came to my mind. When did it change? And maybe it hasn't changed. I'm assuming because of your size. I'm making assumptions, right? And so hear me out. All right. When did it go from you reaching out to the government reaching back out to you? When did that switch?
Well, that's a good question.
Because I know in the beginning, right, we're all like calling the government, we're the ones, the aggressors, and we're the ones like, hey, we did. And then at some point, they reach out to you and say, hey, we've heard about you guys.
Yeah, I don't think that ever happens a lot. I don't think the government reaches out a lot, and the only way that they'll reach out to you is they say, hey, we want you to look at this opportunity. Right. That's it. Right, no more, no less. I mean, they don't guarantee that. They don't do any of that. But they say, "Hey, we want you to look at that opportunity." That's it. I mean, that's happened, on a couple of occasions. Hey, Travis, have you guys been tracking this opportunity? Hey, Travis, we're looking at this opportunity that's coming up. That doesn't happen a lot.
Really,
it's really you tracking the opportunity.
So you're still tracking everything.
Oh, you have to track the opportunities. You have to know what your agency is selling, right? And when that particular RFP or whatever the case may be, and I'm talking about RFPs, I'm not really talking about other types of services. I'm talking about things that you have to bid on. You got to know when that opportunity is coming out. I mean, and they usually are publishing these lists, year and a half, 2 years in advance. And if you are not actively tracking when those opportunities are coming out and when they are going to be released for solicitation, you're missing the boat. And if you're not a year and a half, 2 years prior to it coming out,
right,
you're behind. You're behind from, again, a solicitation response perspective. Now, this is not talking about all the other services, that the government purchases or buys. But you got to know what they are selling and when they are going to sell it. And if you're not actively tracking those lists, there's no way that you can be positioned to take advantage of it when it comes out. No way.